Hello and welcome to Tables of Content. Pull up a seat, join us. We have room for everyone. My name is Darin M. Bush. I'm the founder and executive producer of Tables of Content. You've joined us today for a Zeroversary movie watch party. This is the after panel in a two-part series called Don't Click Accept. I'll explain exactly what that means in just a moment, but first I'd like you to meet our rambunctious and tech-savvy panelists. I'm going to start with this gentleman to my other side over here. Matt, introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Hello, I'm Matt. I've been doing IT for, I don't know, 15 years, and I spend like 90% of my free time just watching really dumb movies.
Excellent. So you're overqualified. And next, Johnny, introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Hi, Johnny. I've been doing IT for 30 years, almost 30 years. Good Lord. And I too love watching most of the movies that don't get rated and don't win awards.
Excellent. And last, but probably not least, Eric.
I'm Eric. I've been working in IT for a long time, longer than I can even quantify. And I'm not a huge movie buff. These guys call me Simon Cowell.
Thank you, Simon. I mean, Eric. And just in case anybody's wondering, I'm still Darin Bush. I'm a science fiction and fantasy author. I also create content for local Atlanta science fiction and fantasy conventions. I am a movie buff. And also, I have been doing IT for just decades and decades as an amateur before I got into it professionally, which was a mistake. So anyway, let's go back and talk about why we're here. This is the Don't Click Accept. This is the after panel for a two-part series about three movies that have zeroversaries this year. Basically, it's an anniversary ending in zero. It's a wacky term that I made up a few years ago. So what I would say now is go back and watch the before video before you watch this video. So what we'll do is we'll let you pause here. Okay, and now you're back and you've watched that video, you've watched the movies, and now you're back for the after panel. My three victims, panelists here, have watched these three movies, which I might as well tell you what they are now. It shouldn't be a surprise at this point. The 20th anniversary of Resident Evil was this year. It is the 30th anniversary of The Lawnmower Man, which we will talk about in just a few minutes. And it is the 40th anniversary of Disney's classic Tron, which we're going to have a lot of fun talking about. I heard a rumor that one of our panelists considers it their favorite movie. We'll see how that goes. So let's do this. Let me remind everybody that, as we probably stated in the before panel, some of these movies are R-rated. We're not saying these movies are child friendly or family friendly. We're barely saying that they're geek friendly. Which leads me to the next point, which is we're not endorsing or recommending these movies, and you're about to find out why for a couple of these. I've been pre-warned on some harsh opinions that are about to come along here. Okay, guys, so let's jump right in, and let's see if we can get away with talking about the 2002 sci-fi "the virus is coming to kill everybody" zombie movie Resident Evil. Let me start by asking everybody a question, which is, I have it right here, which is, who watched Resident Evil as part of these panels here? Show of hands. Is that everybody? Okay, good. And who is watching this movie for the first time because of this panel? Okay, Eric put his hand up. Oh, Johnny put his hand up too. Good. So I'm going to pick on Matt here. For Resident Evil, which was the first one, because we were talking earlier, there's like 9 of these movies now or something like that. Did you forget anything significant, either good or bad, about this movie that you caught when you rewatched it?
I mean, I hadn't seen this, and we were talking earlier how this has spawned like 12 sequels, and this was really my first foray into zombie movies, aside from if we want to go back to the old classics. So yeah, I really forgot quite a bit.
Yeah, same for me. It had been a while since I'd seen it. My wife and I are collecting bad science fiction movies, and we kind of sort of had this one on the list. But I had watching it with the focus of what's wrong with the computers and what's wrong with the technology in this movie gave me a different perspective. But really, it's a pretty standard, straightforward, high-tech CGI, the zombies are coming to get me sort of movie. I don't know if it invented anything new for the genre. I don't think it did.
No, I would say maybe it rebooted the genre to an effect.
Maybe. maybe.
I don't think there was probably a good like 10 or 15 years where there wasn't a whole lot of zombies going back to like, what's his name? Ramiro? What was the director's name?
Romero.
And then after this, I mean, my goodness, how many zombie movies have we had in the last 20 years?
Has this movie aged well, even though it's only 20 years old?
I think not having seen it the first time, it doesn't look like it's 20 years old. So in a way, I'll say it did age fairly well. I mean, when you make a movie 20 years ago with futuristic characteristics to it, technology, all the what is it, the scanners all over the place and everything. I think it'll hold up if the story is good enough. It won't feel or give that look of, wow, this was made 20 years ago. So I think it did from a video perspective.
Okay.
And,
Eric,
and I
what
would
about you?
agree. I think that it's kind of similar to a lot of the in-home assistants kind of doing whatever the heck they want now anyway. Sometimes you don't even talk and you hear the Echo or the Google Home telling you, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that." Very similar to the AI in the film.
Okay. So I'll open this up for everybody. Last question before we get into talking about the details of the film, which is, do you remember us saying anything about this movie in the before panel that we got spectacularly wrong? I think we got away with this one in the before panel.
I think being pretty much just you and I being the only ones that had seen it, I don't think we had a whole lot to get wrong in the beginning.
Well, you lied to us. You said we were going to like it.
I said that about Lawnmower Man. I said nothing about Resident Evil.
All right, so Eric brings up a good point, which is Eric, does the movie Resident Evil by itself convince you to watch science fiction movies?
No.
Okay, I knew which way that was going to go. So Eric being our resident non-fan.
But that's a lot like saying, watch this movie Police Academy and tell me if you like cop movies.
Yes, it is. Except I would argue that Resident Evil, this movie for sure, is very typical of the virus gets into the people and the people start eating the other people genre, right? You didn't know the name of the genre was that big, did you? It's a big honking genre name. But no, I think there's a lot of typical stuff in this movie. And I think that you've got all these different tropes and cliches that float through this film. You've got the gigantic company that's hiding all these secrets literally underground. You've got the artificial intelligence who just like it's trying to kill everybody basically. You've got all of these just kind of like the moment where they're trying to figure out how to get up out of the zombies because the zombies are trying to eat them all, but zombies can't climb. Right? So these zombies are kind of stupid zombies, sort of.
Well, that's how most zombies are. Notice that everybody always climbs higher because they only walk into walls.
Right. So they'll be able to force their way through a door, but it's only because they're going this way and they're just pushing. It's like there's people over there. So yeah, so that moment where they're climbing up the pipes and the zombies are like, "We are foiled by pipes." Yeah, that's fairly typical zombie movie stuff. So if you were to claim that Resident Evil was typical of the genre, I would go, yeah, I think so.
Why did the dogs always get to be the zombies that are magically fast and everyone else is like at a crawl?
Wow, I hadn't thought about that before. That's right. The Doberman Pinschers were still as smart as regular Doberman Pinschers.
Right. They were agile, they could jump, they could do everything else. And then here's these guys that can just, have no ability to bend and straighten their legs in a rapid fashion.
So what would happen if your dogs became zombies, Matt?
Oh, they would just be the cutest little zombies ever.
They would, but they would bite your knees off.
Be that intelligent.
I wouldn't worry. They don't have the bite strength as a living creature to break skin. I don't think as a zombie would be any different.
Didn't the dogs also end up having like slightly more ability? Weren't they jumping higher and just faster?
Well, without a frame of reference, I don't know if we could say that, but probably.
I don't recall it. I had only watched it the one time in my life, going forward is the only time I'm going to probably watch. I may watch it again, but I just remember looking at the dogs. I'm like, same kind of concept. Like the people are moving slow, but these dogs seem bionic. And maybe it's just my take on it.
Well,
Yeah,
weren't they like the subjects in the existing experiment anyway? From what I saw, like they were being kept there unless they were the guard dogs.
Yeah, they were all in the cages.
Yeah, they don't go into a whole lot of backstory in the first one. You get more backstories, you get farther down, but that's a whole.
Now, from a movie perspective, question, because I remember Resident Evil, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the first video game to movies, or was it a movie that became a video game?
No, it was video game to movie.
Right.
It still is a very successful video game series.
So, not being a zombie person or a zombie fan, so I never really played the game either. For those of you, for the two of you up top who've seen it a lot, how does it fit into the game itself? Because normally, you know how you watch it. You play a game and you go, this would make a great movie. Then they make the movie and you go, God, I wish they didn't make this movie. Did you feel like they filled in the story enough where they could make a movie out of it, or did they ruin it?
If you're interested in movie making at all, I recommend the documentaries that come on the Resident Evil DVD. I got it right here. There's documentaries on here that are really fascinating. Real quick before we get too far away from the dogs, them putting the makeup on the actor dogs is really cool. And also the dog is just sitting there going, meh, but it's great watching them put the zombie makeup on the dogs. But also one of the things that they said in the documentary was that the characters in this movie, for the most part, are inventions that fit into the world, but they're not part of the original game. So they kind of fudged it. They needed the end of the movie to lead into one of the games, but they didn't actually use one of the hero characters from the games in order to be Mila Jovovich's character. She's new. So there's this thing where they did a lot of great representation of elements of the game. Like the Doberman Pinschers were awesome compared to the game. They were a great representation from the game, but like entire characters were invented for the film and didn't have anything to do with the game universe. So it's
Well,
no, go ahead, Matt.
Well, and if you spend any time in a bowling alley at all in your youth, you know, this was always that game that was in the arcade. And the original representation wasn't even close to a 1-to-1, but they did a fantastic job of tying them together going forward. Like the big baddies from the movies became the big baddies from the video games and vice versa. And, you know, it really became, I don't know, probably one of the first, what's the word, Darin? Like multi-platform franchises that I'd seen, where you had a continuing story from not just from a movie, but also from something else, a game or, I don't know, a comic or whatever.
Yeah. The games, the games and the movies interact with each other as they go along. And one of the things that's really interesting about this series, if you're a big fan, is that they're still making the games. And I've seen some of the more recent versions, and they're just amazing games. And they're still making the movies. Somebody thinks the movies are worth spending the money on. So if it's not your taste, that's okay, great. But if this is your sort of taste, whether it's the zombie thing or the video games, there's a ton of it. And I do think Matt's right. I think they do interact with each other. I think they do go back and forth. Okay, so before we run out of time on this movie, let's do what we're really here to do with these 4 IT guys, which is, how was the technology in this movie? Eric, you want to tackle that one? Go first on that one?
I mean, I thought it was probably out of the 3 movies the most realistic. Not to say that it was realistic, but the most realistic out of the 3. Just because you do have the assistants, you have cameras nowadays, you have kind of bad software trying to make decisions for the people that are working with it rather than letting the human actually make the decision, which in some cases is just as bad. But it was, in my opinion, it was probably the most realistic out of the 3.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this when we get to Lawnmower Man and Tron. That's why I put the 2 of them together. is just the whole premise makes you go, what? But with Resident Evil, the premise that you're trying to get past is the virus. But I found that there were plenty of technology and computer screw ups and misrepresentations in this movie. And did anybody have one that stood out that they definitely wanted to mention?
A misstep, or
A
just
misstep, or
anything in general?
so one of the things that the four of us struggle with in our mild mannered daytime jobs is how people watch movies and they think computers do things a certain way. And if I could delete all of the bad computer information from movies from my customers, I would in a second. So that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Is there anything that makes you go, that's not the way that works?
Well, so one thing that I always see in these movies that I never understand is why is everyone's go-to for destroying a computer an electromagnetic pulse?
Yeah.
How many watch me destroy my computer right now.
Right, exactly.
Like, I don't know. Magnets. Like, I mean, when was this? 2001, right?
Okay, so full disclosure. This cup has a top on it for a computer-based reason. Yes, you do not need a fancy multi-million-dollar electronic device to kill a computer. You just need moisture.
Superman 3 used that funky liquid that Superman brought in, and it bubbled up and sprayed all over everything.
It's funny. Darin and I were talking about that. I tried to squeeze that one into this panel. Was that the one with Richard Pryor?
Yes.
Richard Pryor.
The one that where Superman was being shot at like a video game and there was a score. Yeah.
It would have been a fantastic candidate for this panel, but it did not meet the criteria, unfortunately.
All right, so we're about to run out of time on this one. So the EMP is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I thought some of the stuff from the movie actually stood out well. Like if you look at it today, AI, maybe not so much holographic with the girl with the helping, but you hear like Eric said, you hear things walking you through it. The laser grid that cuts people up. All right,
why?
We're not quite there yet. And why do people slice apart like a cake?
But I mean, is the holographic thing off? I mean, what they brought Tupac back in concert? I mean,
well,
he's not dead yet, so there's a difference there.
But he wasn't on stage.
Sorry,
different panel. No, the idea I found this out. Somebody told me this later. Is that the programmer of the Red Queen AI, like he did all this work in order to save his 9-year-old daughter. That's why the Red Queen looks like his 9-year-old daughter. And my immediate reaction to that was still creepy. Mm-hmm. Even with that explanation, that doesn't make it less creepy. Very creepy that the Red Queen was a 9-year-old girl. The thing that I thought watching this movie again, trying to figure out what was going on with the computer systems, I think she's the good guy. Like Mila Jovovich and Michelle Rodriguez are awesome. They kick butt, but they're not the good guys in this movie. I think it's the Red Queen.
She was kind of trying to save everybody by sealing it off, and they're trying to reopen it.
Yeah. She was trying to protect the world.
And I know you're not going to like this, Darin, but it's another classic movie example of if the main characters in the movie were never there, it would have been better off or nothing would have changed.
Oh, it's like the first Indiana Jones.
I didn't say it.
Definitely a different panel. We will edit this. We will edit this out. Trigger warning: Indiana Jones movies are not what we're talking about today. No, it is an excellent example of where everyone's motivations are suspect, and at the end of it, you kind of go, "Oh, okay, the creepy little girl who was the hologram was right the whole time." Dun dun dun. Okay, so before we switch movies, because we are running out of time on this one, I want to have as much time as possible to talk about Tron. Let me be honest. So first of all, the Red Queen, can reboot in 30 seconds. And no. I hate to break it to everybody, but the Red Queen is not a laptop computer running Windows 11.
She is
at least boot enabled.
Could be a Mac.
She's at least one mainframe, probably more, chained together. There's no way nothing reboots in 30 seconds, especially something with a holographic projector. But I think what's really funny is the most screwed up computer thing that happens in this movie, in my opinion, has nothing to do with the Red Queen. It has to do with the fact that somebody was confronted with a barcode scanner and lockpicked it. They got out their little things and they went like this, and the barcode scanner said "scan accepted." It was like, no.
Well, what's the other thing that you always see this in movies? you shoot a lock, you turn off the computer. Why does everything unlock? I mean, if the power goes off at a prison, do all the doors just open? Like,
Return of the Jedi, I believe an extra blast door appeared.
it created a door.
Yeah. So they were definitely moving things along at the speed of plot, as the speed of plot as they call it. All right, guys. So we survived Resident Evil. Let's go ahead, and the meat of this sandwich is the 1992 VR breakout, the government is coming to get you movie, The Lawnmower Man, with Pierce Brosnan as the scientist with the earring of all people. So let's go back to our questions, which is who watched The Lawnmower Man as part of this panel?
For the first time, or in general?
And just recently. Okay, good. Right. Everybody did their homework. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Who's watching this movie for the first time? Really? Okay. So we knew Eric hadn't seen it before, but having watched this movie this morning, I realized I've never watched this movie. I was aware of it, but I never actually watched it all the way through. So, Matt, Johnny, anything significant, good or bad, from this movie that you'd forgotten about that's worth mentioning?
Not forgotten about. Well,
it's a pretty simple plot. There's not a whole lot to remember.
I forgot some of the little things, like the way he attacked all the different people, and a couple of like the little things, the intricacies of how Job functioned. But for the most part, I remembered and sadly recalled all the memories that came back from watching Lawnmower Man.
Okay.
It was good. It was good. It was good. I remember back in the day, it was interesting. It was, wow, this is crazy. Like, if this was actually real, and you look at it today and you're like, yeah, we're close. We're not much closer to that than we were back then. And it seemed way more fantastic than it really was.
Yep. So Eric, I got a question for you, since this is your first time seeing it. Did this movie age well?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
I want that 5-cent guess.
The 5-cent guess, right? Exactly. I have to say that I don't think this movie aged well, but I don't think it is its fault. I think the fact that every single character was a cliche of some kind might be the thing that aged the least well. The computer graphics, like, we'll get into more detail on that, but I don't think it's their fault, right? I think that was, at the time, that was pretty much the best you could do, and they did some really cool things with what they could do, considering it's 30 years old. Okay, so was there anything that we were discussing in the before panel that we should claim as being a huge mistake or misremembered item? Did we make any major mistakes in the before panel? No. Okay, good.
So.
That was an easy one. Yeah. All right. I asked that question because every once in a while I make some crack comment about a movie and then watch the movie and go, oh no, wait, no, wrong movie. All right. So so Eric, did this movie convince you to watch science fiction movies?
I mean, this was definitely the one we talked about it after the before panel finished filming. This was the one that I was most excited to watch.
Oh, okay.
This was also the one that I had the most trouble getting through. After starting it, and I have some notes here, but the beginning part of the movie with all the different accents and stuff like that, and for anybody watching, these guys know I love playing with accents. It made me feel like I was watching kind of like the old style Godzilla movie with the different accents and the way that it was filmed in the beginning. It was kind of like, it just didn't feel authentic in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It also kind of proves the dangers of not having a kind of a separation between work and home life, because you can kind of bury yourself into your work a little too much and end up killing people with various household objects.
Well, that took a harsh turn really quickly.
And kind of like we'll talk about with with Tron as well, bad management is kind of a theme in a lot of technological movies where you're maybe don't have the purest of intentions, but you're not thinking about like, what can I do to kill people? And it always ends up being kind of brought down that road based on, we got to make money, we got to be able to fund our wars and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that there's a chance that this program might have been successful if they hadn't intentionally interfered with the medicine, with the injections, without telling the doctor. Right, the government conspiracy snuck the wrong drugs into the patient without the doctor knowing. Yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why things go south so quickly is because they injected him with the drugs that our hero, the doctor, knew was a bad idea. He was going in a different direction, but the government still wanted their soldiers. So we've heard that before.
But that's kind of a cliche to movies as well. I've been watching a lot of old movies just because, I don't know, I just enjoy older movies. I watched Brainstorm, so if you've never seen that, it's Christopher Walken. I love that movie.
Love that movie.
But here's another. It's basically Lawnmower Man follow that same cliche. Oh, you have this new technology. Let's see how we can make it military. Let's see how we can use it to take over and blah blah. And that one part of this movie to me was just like, there's another cliche. It's new technology. How can we militarize it?
I mean, is it really that far off?
I was going to say, where's most of the funding for new technological research coming from?
Well, that's the problem. Is it is a cliche, it is a trope, but also, yeah, it's soaked into our reality.
I mean,
it's one of the reasons why so many. Came from. Well, yeah, yes, the internet was absolutely a military project before they created a duplicate of it and made it public. If you think the internet is the military's internet, no, it's a copy of it that they let us have. They kept theirs, which is one of the reasons why I thought it was so. Well, we'll come back to it in a minute, but remind me about the internet, because there's a moment in the movie where the internet is important and it's complete garbage. They just ruin the moment by bringing that up. Anyway, so one of the things I wanted to mention when we're talking about cliches is, was it me or was the drunk boss supposed to be Irish but didn't quite come across as Irish? I was like, wow, that didn't age well. This is the weirdest 3 houses in a row in any suburb ever, right? You've got the rich widow. You've got the scientist who's got all this equipment in his basement that he gets from his government military contracts that he's not supposed to play with in his basement. And then you've got the drunk, abusive father and the mother who won't leave, and the cute little kid who's a comic book fan who gets hit by the father in front of everybody. Like these 3 houses in a row.
Don't forget the abusive preacher.
Yes.
And he's talking about the neighborhood.
Yes. Well, that's the thing, is if the church was on the other side of the abusive father's house, then it would have been the 4 weirdest suburban buildings in a row. It's like, it's just cliche-ville down on that street.
It had to be closed if he could walk to the house with a lawnmower. I mean,
yes.
How about the fact that the Lawnmower Man lived in a shed?
Yes.
With tools and saw blades.
Yeah.
And I still want to say that I don't believe that he was as dumb as he was made out to be initially, because he actually admitted, like, but I'm dumb. Like, if you're that dumb, you're not going to be self-aware.
There was. I think that Jeff Fahey's portrayal of whatever was wrong with Job, with it spelled with an E. I thought whatever was wrong with Job, which they didn't clarify, I thought he did a great job of portraying that. I don't think the writing was real strong. I don't think they did enough to like have him interact with the world, except for he kept running into cliches, walking cliches, who kept saying the obvious thing we knew everybody was going to say. But yeah, I thought his acting was tremendous, but the writing just wasn't there to give us something to really feel like, to see the tragedy of his.
I really like the cowboy boots.
Yeah, I was like,
and the tight jeans.
He went right to tight jeans and cowboy boots. Like what
and
calendars?
Sex with the widowed neighbor.
Who knew that getting your brain pumped up through virtual reality gives you abs? If I knew it was that
wish.
easy, I'd be hooked up. I'd buy one of those glasses in a heartbeat.
Well, all that flagellation gives you rock hard, abdominal muscles or something. I don't know.
Although
Yeah.
from the character part about him saying, "But I'm dumb." Now that I think about it, also don't forget you have the priest telling him and basically just berating him as a character for years, telling him that he's dumb. So, maybe if you want to look at it from a character point of view, maybe he took that and was like, "Yes, but I'm dumb."
Yeah. I mean, he's got no one telling him he's of any value. They're just not telling him he's retarded or behind or whatever is wrong with him. Whatever developmental delay he has, no one's telling him that and explaining it to him. So he's got a group of people telling him he's dumb to his face and a bunch of people who just aren't talking about it at all. So he doesn't have a good idea of what's going on with himself. He's just parroting that he's dumb. He's not dumb. There's something else wrong with him. Right. And they don't really get into that. The scientist doesn't attempt to explain that. He just gives him the drugs and puts him in the VR.
Well, yeah, but do you really want to make the runtime on this movie longer?
No.
Okay, so I have to confess, when I sat down to watch it, I was like, okay, I got an hour and a half. Oh, it's a 2-hour movie. Oh, wait, why is it a 2-hour movie?
Yeah.
It's a 2-hour movie. What?
It's definitely on the longer side of movies. When you see a movie that's 2 hours, you usually feel I usually look at it and I say, oh, 2 hours, 20 minutes. There must be a lot of good content in this, character development and everything and all this other stuff. And you get into this movie and you're like, nope. That's
all you got was the ooze of life.
I was to say, did you learn nothing from the 3-hour-long Titanic movie? I mean,
yeah.
All right, so before we start to run out of time here, let's talk about the computer systems. Eric, you got any IT comments in your notes there for this one?
Just why? I mean, I have a VR headset myself. I have one of the commercially available headsets, and it is addicting. It's fun, and it is very easy to get lost in it. So, at least from a tech perspective, that's a rare truth in this film. But it's also, how many years ago was this movie? This was 92,
30.
right?
92,
yeah,
30.
So, I mean, it's a 30-year gap between when they envisioned this and what we have in the commercially available headsets. But there's still some stuff that they envisioned in there, like the gimbals or gyroscopes or whatever they're talking about that really aren't commercially available yet. You're just barely starting to see like hand tracking and stuff like that. I'm sure that there probably could be something like this going on where you're using VR to help teach people. I think that is a valid thought sometime down the future when the technology matures. But when it was filmed, and even right now, probably not super realistic, especially with those graphics.
Yeah. I mean, this is true original science fiction, is that they take something that exists and they put it decades ahead and tell a story about it. Most of this technology is still not really commercially available, and it certainly doesn't work as well even now as it did in the film. So, okay. So, Johnny, Matt, anything on the computer problems front that sticks out?
I had one big one, but the more I think about it, I think about what technology was 30 years ago, the more it makes sense. I'm going to save that though, because I have a feeling it's something that you wanted to get to as well.
No,
but
go for it.
Okay, so there multiple things about the internet that bother me. One, where the heck was the wireless lawnmower coming from? I mean, I never thought about that when it first started, and I was trying to watch to see if there was some sort of like, I don't know, telepathic abilities that he gained from it, but they didn't really push anything like that out. So the only thing I can think of is,
of course, he did. He was moving
glasses.
He was moving glasses of water on the table. He was,
they gave him telekinesis.
Okay.
Yeah, but
all
it's
right, well,
but the
Not
idea,
well, but not well.
well, but I mean, think about how much this is something that was in my notes, not about the computer, but about the story, which is the interaction with Big Red, the lawnmower that he built, is really a nice little subtle hint as to his mental state. Because when you first see him mowing, he's all kind of like doing his best to keep up with it and to control it. And then by the end, he's having it do this crazy kind of psychotic lawn mowing with him sitting on the porch, using his telekinesis to move it around. And I was like, the way the lawnmower moves and the way he uses it was like a signal for what was going on with him. I thought that was pretty good. It didn't save the movie or the story, but so Johnny, did you have one for us?
I thought there are, you're talking about technology wise, there were a couple of
Mhm.
things that did stick out that we still have. Like they had like a Google Glass kind of headset of some kind that he was using on the outside when he was training Job. He had the little eyepiece while Job was in the machine. So, you know, that although the glass has been pulled, Google Glass has been pulled, they still have something like that with like a HUD, a built-in HUD where you can kind of navigate. So that kind of stuck out. Yeah, I guess they touched on the unlocking of was it like primal powers like telekinesis and all the other stuff. The way he was the way he was taking out his quote unquote adversaries, I thought was a little, mowing the brain of the gas station attendant to make him as intelligently challenged as he was and stuff like that. I was like, okay, but it was neat. You know, it was still a neat concept. But I
just
thought
want to
some
know
of
where
the
the
stuff
lightning bugs came from.
yeah.
There
His face above the house.
Yeah, there was a lot of they extended the VR into reality, which is an old Star Trek mistake. It's like, no, you have to have a projector. There's no projector. What are you doing? Didn't make any sense. They were really disappointing me with the computer mistakes, and then all of a sudden they got to the point where the doctor, Pierce Brosnan's character, the doctor, was trying to get back into the system so he could stop Job, and this one NPC character had one line of dialogue, and it was full of 19 things that computers are not about or just completely wrong. When he gets someone is hacking into the mainframe from the outside, and just that whole sentence about someone's using a virus, the whole thing was just crap. Just garbage. For one thing, do they have any doubt as to who it is that's hacking into the mainframe from the outside? The way a mainframe works is only the people you give access to have access. So the fact that it goes out into the real world at all is just wrong. The only possible connections you could have to the mainframe would be to the houses of the people who work on the project. So the list of suspects is real short. So the idea that they had no idea who was hacking, that's just stupid. It's just stupid. They knew exactly who it was. They should have. And then also they talked, this is what I wanted to get back to, is they talk about being connected to the internet. I'm like, wait, why would a military mainframe be connected to the internet ever? It doesn't need to be. The military has its own internet, although that's not what they call it. They have their own military network that doesn't touch the public internet, the one that we're used to. So that whole thing about him going from the military mainframe out to the world and back, nope, dumb. It's not the way it works.
And what was the point of the Rubik's Cube locks?
Oh, the port hacking. We were talking about that. The one by one. Here's this computing device that can do thousands, I don't know what it would have been back then, but tens of thousands of actions a second. And here he is one at a time. Denied.
Why is he doing one at a time? It's really dumb. It's for sense of drama, but it's really dumb. The other sentence that I really have to throw out because it just made me laugh. I had to pause the movie. I was laughing so hard. I'm going to be connected to 5,000 databases. Really?
That's 5, like one company now.
Woo, 5,000 databases. I'm like, no. I don't know if that number was supposed to have sounded impressive in 1992, but even back then, I don't think it was impressive.
You're basically attached to Macy's. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't consistent.
They're not databases. They're just Excel documents. Really big Excel documents.
Right, exactly. 5,000 databases. All right. So excellent. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. We survived the Lawnmower Man. Now we can warn our children.
But did we really?
Did we? It did. I did feel there were parts of this movie that I felt like it lawnmowered my brain. So yes.
Don't lie. You all bought the sequel. You're ready.
No. I'm never going to watch the sequel. All right, guys. Here we go. 1982's classic Tron, which was published by Disney, which still makes me amazed. Let's do the work here. Let's start with who watched Tron for the panel? Show of hands. Excellent. And who is watching this movie for the first time for this panel? Excellent. Great. Okay. So I do want to say that I had completely forgotten how amazing the cast is. It is for this kind of movie, this is an amazing cast. I really enjoyed the heck out of the cast. Anything else? Like Johnny, I know you've seen this movie like 4 times in the last year. So Matt, Eric, anything jump out at you, good or bad, that you had forgotten about the movie that was significant?
I completely, in my brain, mixed up Flynn and Tron.
Yeah.
As far as who Jeff Bridges played. It had been so long since I'd seen this that I thought Jeff Bridges was Tron. I was not even close.
Yeah, and that's one of the weird things about this movie is Jeff Bridges is not the title character.
No.
Although everybody talks about how this is a Jeff Bridges movie. He's in it, but Tron is Bruce Boxleitner, which I think is very cool. Has this movie aged well? Anyone?
No. Honestly, I disagree. I think
it has aged well.
Because honestly, if you go and watch it in an amazingly simplistic Disney way, is it really inaccurate about anything that it does from start to finish? I mean, sure, the graphics aren't what would happen, with technology today, but I mean, in a very simplistic sense, I mean, almost everything is, once you're inside this universe, is a very Disney way of explaining how a computer works.
There is one concept to it that always threw me off, especially when and I'm not a developer or programmer, but anyway, but programs are only meant to do what they're told to do.
Yeah.
And how do you take an accounting program and make it play video games? It doesn't know how to. So granted, that's a way to get it killed. Like they say, if you don't get trained, you'll die playing. But how do you take a program that's meant to, like an actuarial program, you're going to go play this game, or you're gonna throw discs around? You can't. That concept has always.
You just have to make it divide by 0.
You can't just take a person. You can take a person and teach them, but you can't take a program, because even in the movie they say programs, we do whatever we're told to do, no matter how stupid it sounds. How all of a sudden does it learn how to play Deadly Discs or whatever other game it was? That concept has always thrown me off about it. When you look at the reality to it.
I want Eric to repeat what he just said, because that was worth repeating.
You said, how do you kill an accounting program? I said, just make it divide by 0.
Yeah, that was an easy joke. That was an easy joke that they missed in that movie. That was something they should have put. That was a deleted scene that they should have put back in. So I think this is one of those movies where, okay, well, let me ask Eric the obligatory question, which is, Eric, did this movie convince you that there's something worthwhile in science fiction movies?
I mean, this was one of the ones that I had, out of this panel, this was the only one that I had seen previously.
Mm-hmm.
And that was honestly because it was always talked up so much when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And when it became available and when Disney Plus came out, it was the first movie I watched on Disney Plus. I enjoyed it for what it was. I don't think that it was a very accurate portrayal of technology, although Matt does have a good point that it's a very simplistic way of talking about how computers work to people that don't necessarily have our level of expertise. Because to us, it's probably the stupidest way of describing something to somebody that we could think of. And I think you guys all know that I've come up with some dingers. But I think that if you look at it through that lens, it was actually a really smart way to do it. So that was a good point, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, tell me, does anyone here really not want a pet bit?
Oh, I want one.
I mean, I kind of have 2.
Little floating magic 8-ball over your head that can say nothing but yes and no.
I mean, we talked about this in the before panel, but I think it's worth repeating. Is the character bit had 2 responses, yes or no, 1 or 0. That's exactly correct. That's what a bit is. So That was incredibly accurate. It's just the fact that you then have to ask yourself, how does it know the answer to anything? What's feeding it information that it could come up with an answer? Or is it just like one of those crazy fake AI programs? We'll fix that in post, where it just randomly answers yes or no, and it tricks you into thinking it's thinking. So yeah, was that character useful? No, maybe. Okay, so Johnny, in counterpart to what Eric was saying, not to disagree necessarily, but you've claimed is this your favorite movie or one of your favorites?
One of.
One of. So what is it about this movie that makes it so close to the top of the list there for you?
Mostly because the first time I saw it, I was maybe 8 years old, and it was so different than any movie of its time. And then, like I said, if you watch the documentaries at the time of making it, most of the movies, the only reason this really came up was because of Star Wars. Star Wars turned Hollywood from cowboys and John Wayne type movies to sci-fi. Sci-fi came out of the 70s. So this was Disney's way to jump into it, along with Black Hole, I believe, was the other Disney sci-fi movie. So, being a little kid and seeing it was mesmerizing. I remember the plastic case that the VCR tape came in. I rented every time we went back. I rented the same damn movie, and it just sticks with me from my youth. So that was one of the biggest reasons why it's one of my favorites. Whether or not it stands the test of time and whatnot and all the other stuff never really mattered as much as being 8.
Someone might come along and say, well, why don't they just redo the graphics and insert that and leave the same story and leave everything else alone, but just like update the graphics? I'm like, no. Part of the charm of this movie is the graphics and the way that they used non-CG tech inside of a computer, right? Inside of a fake, a fictional computer. So the costumes and the glowing lights on the costumes were all cinematography tricks. There's no CG in those outfits, which I think is amazing. It was an amazing achievement for way back then. I think this is a mix. There are parts of it that don't age well. There are parts of it that age beautifully because I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed the struggle that they built in, even though it wasn't a terribly original story. It was a very cool way of doing it. I do want to put this in perspective for everybody based on what Johnny just said. Empire Strikes Back was a year old when this movie came out. Right. So if you're sitting there going, oh, this movie looks garbagey. Well, okay. Empire Strikes Back, which was only the second Star Wars ever, for those of you who are too young to remember that. That's how quickly after the first Star Wars movie, only 5 years after New Hope, that they put together this visually stunning film for the early 80s. So I'm still very impressed. I think it ages well. There are parts of it that make me go, okay. But yeah. But every 40-year-old sci-fi high-tech movie is gonna do that.
And love it or
hate
it, there's really nothing like it then or since. It wasn't black and white; it was white and black.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see what it looked, you just mentioned, what if they remade the movie and put the high-tech stuff into it? Go watch part 2. So part 2 is supposed to kind of be whatever it was at the time, 25 years later. Technology changed, and if you remember, technology back then, everything was square edges. Everything was some kind of a square, or maybe everything had a sharp edge to it. And part 2, I guess, because they wanted to show how things have changed, there's a lot of flow, there's a lot of angles and curves. I know it's kind of hard to explain, but like the laser bikes, they all of a sudden had waves instead of just sharp edges. So they tried to show you how things have evolved a little bit, and some technology might have changed. But you can see when they throw all that CGI in and you see everything the way it looks, it loses something. So part 2 always, to me, lost that I guess, like everybody said, the eye appeal, like, for the way it looked back then compared to now. It's all computer graphic generated, CGI, everything. It kind of lost something. It's like the new Star Wars movies. The first 3 movies were made with models.
Mm-hmm.
The prequels were made all CGI, and it kind of lost its innocence, its specialty, I guess, if you will.
Well, yeah, this is what happened with Steven Spielberg's Jaws, with the trilogy of the original trilogy of Star Wars, is they could only afford and they only had the tech to do so much, so they had to work really hard to figure out what was worth doing. With CG, if you've got 500 programmers behind you and you've got millions of dollars in budget, you don't have to go through that very intense process of going, we can only do one. So which one is the best one to do? Which moment should we put on screen because it's part of the story and it's important, as opposed to, yeah, just litter the background with all kinds of CG garbage because we can. Yeah, I agree. That was one of the things that was disappointing about the Star Wars prequels. Tron Legacy, like, I don't remember the story at all. I don't remember having any emotional connection to it. Visually, it was amazing. The light cycles were amazing. Didn't really care. I was like, okay, that looks cool. But the original Tron, even though the story isn't, like I said, isn't terribly original or complicated, I really was rooting for Flynn. I was rooting for Tron. I was rooting for Flynn. I really wanted Sark to get it, like, and when he hit him in the forehead with the disc, the data disc, and sliced his head open, I was like, yeah, get him. I was with him the whole way. So the computer graphics don't make the story. Again, this is great evidence of that.
Yeah, the other thing I think is funny when you look back at it also is that the characters in the computer, the software, look like the programmer.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me they all only developed one program.
There was another, yeah.
You don't see three of the same character, 4 of the same character. So they really only developed that one program. Their essence is into it. That's who they are. That's it.
Yeah.
Every other program looks like they're the person who made them.
And why wasn't there a team creating certain applications? What are they going to do? Have like a Hydra, like 3-headed program?
There were a lot of lost opportunities for really funny stuff they could have done. A whole room full of people that all look exactly the same because it's just basically duplicates of, especially like actuarial programs. They should have had a whole room of the same actor playing 25 or 30, right? But again, it's money. Okay, guys. So before we run out of time, any parting shots on Tron, especially any computer glitches before we get out of here?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing for me, and I know I touched on it with Lawnmower Man a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's I know the management really isn't a technology thing, but the really the big theme here is, I mean, we've all worked for companies where they are insistent, like, this program is absolute garbage, but you are going to use it and you are going to like it.
Mm-hmm.
The master control program was a lot of our support software. And I mean, we all know what we're talking about. I'm sure everybody out there knows what we're talking about being forced to use a piece of garbage that you could probably find something better if you could access Google for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really a common theme here, at least between Lawnmower Man and Tron, where bad management, like, if you don't like it, leave. And I mean, we've been through that too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I think
you could throw Resident Evil in there. Someone's responsible for that virus getting out.
yeah.
It sure
absolutely.
wasn't the peons.
And I think that
Yeah.
it's also kind of a warning shot for reality in the future. Is the more that you rely on the applications to do the work, the dumber the population's going to become.
Yeah. It is funny that all 3 of these movies, what they really have in common is that middle management killed people.
Hashtag pandemic.
Well,
I was gonna go hashtag Challenger, but maybe
the MCP wasn't middle management. The MCP became the top of the pyramid. It controlled every aspect of the company.
yeah, which is another interesting problem that the pose. Yeah, the way that the company was structured in Tron rang very true for me, having worked, in a cubicle environment for a big corporation for most of my IT career. Yeah. So the idea
Wasn't
idea
that
that
the whole point of Tron was essentially a middle manager and upper manager stealing
Yes.
credit of which that's a whole nother story, bothered me on its own, because
No.
does someone
it was-
really think this person wrote all of the software by himself
No.
with no one else?
I was gonna say it wasn't a middle manager. It was just like a low level guy who took someone else's idea and ran with it, and so it wasn't a middle or a high level. These were
He was the only guy that had an office and a
no,
fancy
yes,
desk.
but when the if you think of it, he's been searching for the answer as to who stole his stuff, proof of it, and he said it. I developed these things on the side, just kind of doing a little thing for myself, and then this guy stole it, presented it to the company, and skyrockets to fame and fortune. So it wasn't so much a upper management battle. It was more like, my coworker came up with a great idea, but I'm going to take it, which,
An
So the-
end user coming up with some awesome technology like remote assistant software and then becoming IT manager.
So the moral of the story of Tron is, if you're going to have a side hustle, do it on your personal computer, not your work computer.
yeah.
Because again, the only reason that David Warner's character in Tron had access to the program that he stole was because it was where it could be stolen.
Maybe Tron's the whole reason that people throw into tech contracts nowadays, that anything that you create while you're working at this company is ours.
Yes.
Yeah, the difference between Lawnmower Man is he wasn't trying to take it public or do anything on the side. So he,
Yeah. Again, why would that be connected to the internet? Why would Flynn's programs be somewhere where other people could get to them if he if he thought they were that important? All right, guys, excellent. And speaking of stealing programs, I've got to throw this out real quick or I'm going to explode, which is that Bruce Boxleitner, who played Tron, not Jeff Bridges, he was in Babylon 5 with the guy that played Chrome, Peter Jurassic, who was Mulari in the Babylon 5 series. And I'm sitting here making sure I spelled Jurassic correctly, right? Because it's with a K. And it suddenly occurred to me that Disney should sue Google because they had a program named Chrome before Google did. That was Peter Jurassic's character.
Don't give Disney any more reasons to sue people.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll add a disclaimer. Disney, please don't take this too seriously. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. What I want to do is I want to do what we call it paying the bills around here. I want to remind everybody that if you're at the end of this panel and you didn't go and watch the before panel first, please go back and watch the before panel and try again. Let our audience know who you are again, and if you want people to track you down on the interwebs, how they can do that so they can disagree or agree heartily. I'm going to start with, I got it right that time. I'll start with Matt over here to my side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just Matt. I don't have any channels or social media really up and running as of yet, but I'm sure we will do this again and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, you haven't seen the last of Matt, I promise. Eric, how about you?
I'm Eric. I'm a large, obnoxious man.
That works. That we're not about telling you what to do here. So, Johnny, how about you?
kind of the same. I'm just Johnny, and I have social media, but I
Okay, I promise we didn't.
It feels fitting. I'm not
script
gonna lie.
We might leave this in because the computers are upset at Johnny for some reason.
It's the best sign off out of the three of us. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, hold on.
Oh man, my battery died. So
Okay, so I love the fact.
tech tip number 1: plug your laptop in.
Oh,
I told you not to make fun of Lawnmower Man.
Johnny, I didn't see the text.
Yeah.
I didn't see the private chat. I wasn't looking at it. I was looking at something else. Johnny, how can people track you down on the interwebs if you want them to?
Yeah, you could share email address. I have my social media. It's mainly for personal stuff. I try not to use it for anything public. I don't have any public accounts like everybody else, but otherwise I'm just out there as myself.
Okay. Well, what I love is that you're looking at 4 IT people. And I think the lesson here from these panelists is that none of us are going, oh, yeah, I've got the Twitter and the Facebook and the other thing and the Instagram, because we work in the industry and we know what all of that does to people and what the problems are. So excellent. Thank you, guys. This is the part where we wave goodbye. So say goodbye to the tables of content audience, and we will see you guys at the next set of Zeroversary movie watch party panels. Thanks, everybody. This has been a presentation of Tables of Content. What kind of stupid name is that?